everybody, this is Remnant. I'm doing some post-session analysis based on some recent blind target solo work. Point in doing this is seeing what I got right, seeing how I can improve. I have only been doing remote viewing for just a few months, so I'm still a beginner, so don't take anything here as gospel. But for those of you who enjoy remote viewing and kind of thinking about methodology, maybe this might be an interesting video. So my target here was the Vasa, which is a Swedish warship. It's in the Vasa Museum in Stockholm, Sweden. And here's a little bit of background information on the target.
On August 10th, 1628, this was the most powerful weapon in the world. 20 minutes later, it was at the bottom of Stockholm Harbour. There aren't any physical signs of damage. The wood hasn't been set ablaze, ripped apart by a reef, or blown apart with cannons. So why did this warship never see war? Who sank the Vasa? Let's relive the fateful day of the sinking. After being dragged along the eastern shorefront from the Stepsgarden shipyard, the Vasa was ready to take sail. Named for his family, the Vasa dynasty, King Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden was anxious for it to join him fighting in the 30 Years' War. On board are sailors and their families, while along the shore thousands waited to see the flagship of the Swedish Navy take to the seas. All the gun ports along both the lower and upper decks are opened, ready to fire a salute as the ship leaves Stockholm. After unfurling her sails, she makes her way steadily through the port. Just as she rounds Beckhollen Island, a strong gust of wind makes the ship bank heavily to port. In fact, so far does she lean that the lower gun ports become submerged. As water rushes in, the fate of the ship is sealed, and she sinks in a matter of minutes.
Okay, so there's the background. You can imagine if you were the king at the time, you got a ship named after your dynasty. It leaves, it has the shortest maiden voyage maybe ever, so barely a few minutes out of port, and the ship goes down. And historians say the ship was basically top heavy and got caught by a breeze. So that's the general target that we're looking at. But keep in mind, our tasking is to look at this in the museum. So the first methodology I use is actually something called visual ideograms, and it's something I've been seeing other remote viewers talk about, and it's derived from the HRVG methodology. And so I've been playing around with it for the past few sessions to see how it works. Oftentimes I get a lot of visual imagery in my sessions. So here is that first foray with visual ideograms.
007. Connect on visual ideogram. Okay, I get something that looks like this. This is visual ideogram number 1. Target is 80074501. Connect on visual ideogram. Okay, I get something that looks like this. Okay.
So this was interesting to me. The idea with visual ideograms is not trying to often see the entire target in one foul swoop, just right out of the gate, but trying to make a connection to the target and at least get some basic imagery or basic geometry. So if you look at the first visual ideogram, you kind of have this conception of the hull, the bow of the ship, and you can also see kind of this circular enclosure kind of. And so here's an image of the Vasa in the museum, so we can see kind of this basic ship geometry. And if you notice, the enclosure also has some curvature to it. So we got, I think, some basic connectivity with target right out of the gate with the visual ideograms. And then the second one, we can see here the rigging on the ship. And here's a close-up image of that. So right out of the gate, visual ideograms seem to be deriving data pertaining to the site, so I thought it was pretty cool. I'm going to continue to experiment with those. So next data was really getting some impressions from the museum, and I wish I had stayed there longer. You'll see how that progresses for me. But here's some initial impressions from the museum itself.
Target is 800745. Getting something that looks like this.
So I thought this was interesting. Pretty early in my session here, as I've been about 6 minutes, and I started to get this impression of boundary structures being set up, something elevated, and then something to see. Yet the elevation was really intended to kind of provide a vantage point for something. So if we go back to our museum, we can tell, some of the display areas, the gallery areas, they definitely have boundaries and some of the angles, and they're really set up so that you have a very broad ranging view of the Vasa. So I thought that was interesting. So from this point on in my session, I kind of leave the museum behind, which is a problem. I can talk about that a little bit later, but your subconscious often follows the thing that's most interesting to it. So after getting a lot of things that seem to perhaps be derived from the museum itself, my session really starts to follow the Vasa back through time a little bit, in terms of some of the things that may have happened to it. So here's the start to that, I believe. Let's take a look.
Sort of an imagery of something like a linear element that runs out, maybe a land-water boundary, and some association to this site.
Okay, so I'm getting a land-water interface and then a projection out into that. And so, here's an image of some of the recovery docks from the 1950s when the Vasa was brought up. I don't know if it was from this or from something else, but I'm definitely outside the museum at this point, which is probably not a good thing. But getting that kind of sense about there being a relationship between the Vasa and some of these projections. So really from there, everything kind of went underwater, literally. Here's some of the imagery that I began, or the data I began to get about the Vasa, as I was kind of following it backwards in time.
Okay, let's clarify. Alright, just keep going. 8007450. Connect on visual imagery. I get something that kind of looks like this. And there's water here somehow. It's had an organic feel to it.
Okay, so I really, because I skipped in my ideograms, really doing any ideograms that were kind of symbolic or representational, I'm beginning to pick up water, which is good. And if you look at the shape of what I've drawn here, it's kind of a general ship shape. And this is a representation from the museum of when the Vasa was actually laying on the floor of the harbor. And so you can kind of see the general same kind of sense that I'm getting here. And I continue down that lane. So this kind of takes us underwater, and I start getting a lot of this kind of subaquatic conceptions here.
Okay, it's something kind of like this, and there's like dark above it. There's something dark above it.
So we get kind of another one. This is like the idea of maybe something dark, this general ship shape, and that continues as well.
So I get a visual on one. I see something that's kind of like this. It's like circular here, and then kind of ribbed, and this idea of like it, almost like it being submerged. That's kind of what I got. It's a quick image. Okay, texture. This feels metallic to me. Man-made. Bathoscope.
So I thought it was funny. I got circular, I got ribbed, I got submerged. So definitely getting the ship. But then these pop out words. So for those of you who do remote viewing, a lot of times you just have these words suddenly emerge. You always pay attention to them. They're interesting and just kind of. I always get this bathoscope is kind of a more contemporary type of a submarine. So I don't really think they had that in the recovery period in the 1950s, which is when we finally brought it up. But there's also in the 17th century, they were actually sending down diving bells to go and recover the cannons, which is one of the most valuable parts. So they actually had a recovery operation at that time period, which was pretty amazing in the 1700s. So I thought it was kind of cool that diving bell, and I'm getting this kind of word connotation with subaquatic operations. And some additional data around those lines. I get an energetic of pressure right here when I probe for energetics. I'm getting like water pressure.
Pressure. Okay, so I'm going to clear an AOL. My AOL is like a submersible, something like that. So I take a short break.
So definitely in the session, I start getting this concept of being underwater, and also get some kind of connotations of like people going underwater, traversing underwater, and continue to get data on that because now I'm on the bottom of the ocean area there with the Vasa. So here's some more of that kind of data.
3. Clarify visual. Getting man-made, maybe something with something sticking out, like an opening with something sticking out. Okay. All right. Taste and textures. It's salty, briny, metallic. I'm getting hypnagogic imagery now of like a submersible. Is kind of what's coming back to me. So I'm going to re-clear my AOL. My AOL is like a submarine or a submersible or something like that.
So definitely now kind of getting this concept that this thing's man-made. I also kept getting this. You see what I drew there, but this idea of like an opening in it, and you kind of see has kind of a cannon look to it for this one of the cannon ports. And definitely kept getting things like this. Sometimes I get hypnagogic imagery, this thematic. So I kept getting these thematic images of like submersibles and things like that. So still getting a lot of that kind of data. And here's kind of a continuation of that.
I'm getting like a sense of ocean life. Like aquatic life. Kind of got like a big something aquatic like going into the water. This.
So I won't go through all these, but I got several different returns on like different kinds of aquatic life being at the site. So that was like what I saw was like a big whale tail kind of going into the water. I also got like different impressions of fish and different things, so kind of sensing life around the boat, at the submerged boat that had sank. And here's another data related to being underwater and this idea of being submerged.
Let's connect on 4. Connect on 4. Clarify visual. Getting a sense of something like this, some kind of this energetic is preceded by something. Connect on 8, clarify visual. So this could be submerged, possibly. Could be associated with water or underwater. Okay. Clarify. Getting this kind of association with something that's cylindrical. You see like water sloshing inside of it. Something like that.
So I always find it funny when I'm in theta. Not only sometimes I can't even recall words very well. I think I said submersed there instead of submerged, but I definitely started getting this idea of like something cylindrical going down. Like you feel the water coming into it. So I was getting the idea about the boat sinking itself. This kind of image of maybe what was going on in the boat when it was going down. And just another one, I always find this kind of funny. This is a read on trying to smell. And so for those of you who've done this before and you're probing on a target and you're trying to get a sense of smell and it's underwater, it's always kind of funny.
Okay. Clarify. Connect on imagery ready. Show me. Kind of this weird feathery sort of thing, kind of pink feathery thing somehow. Okay. Alright. Taste. Briny. Smell. I feel like I may be underwater.
So, if you go and you attempt to get a smell and your target's there, you immediately get the sense like you can't breathe. So I thought it was kind of interesting. The other part, that kind of pink thing, is this kind of sense of aquatic life. This part was also interesting. So if you go here, several people didn't make it off the boat. So many did, but some didn't. And so there were definitely remains that were found of the boat. And I did get some data on that as well.
Okay, back on target. We need nothing less. Target 8007450. Clear, empty bowl. Connect on 8. Life. Getting like images of ribs or something coming up out of sand, kind of sandy looking. Connect on 9.
So I thought it was interesting. Started to see some of the remains that were associated with the site. Then word associations weren't too bad. I'm not the best at word associations often, but here are some of the ones that came up when I tried.
Connect to target. What is the aesthetic impact of this target? What does it feel like? Feels perturbed. Stirred. Aesthetic impact. 8007450 won't connect. Feels heavy. Laden. Emotional impact. Feels exciting. Unknown. Exciting and unknown. Exciting and unknown. Exciting and unknown. Okay. Let's try some word associations. A. Anthill. Adventure. Aquanaut. E. Equilibrium. I. No. O. Ocean. Oxygen. Oh crap. You. Underwater.
So I thought these were pretty funny. Definitely you got a ship on the bottom of the water you're bringing up. It's perturbed, stirred, heavy and laden. You imagine something laden with the water as they're bringing it up. Exciting and unknown. So it seemed pretty good. Anthill, no idea. Adventure, Aquanaut, definitely seem on. Equilibrium, kind of funny if you consider the story of the boat. The fact that the boat really was put off to its side because it was top heavy and what happened. Similarly, we get ocean, oxygen. Oh crap, makes me kind of laugh. Probably some hints in there that something had happened. I didn't really explore that maybe as much as I should have. And then, definitely underwater. Got that again. So there's other data in the site, but I don't want to make this a forever video, and I will definitely post the full thing if you wanna go through. I love watching remote viewing sessions. So if you're one of the few people like myself who really dig like watching full sessions, I'll put a link up there for folks to check that out. But one of the things I thought was interesting is I tried some different methodology this time, looking at subject. And so most interesting subject is one of my directives I often give, is to see if I can focus if the target's about somebody. This target's of course about the ship, but I thought the results were actually interesting when I ran this.
Alright, let's try to assemble a composite. So let's do some direct 01. Target is 8007450. Most interesting subject at the site, 8007450. Okay, show me now.
Okay, so I go for most interesting subject, and what I saw, I got back initially, was like somebody in scuba gear, which I thought was really interesting. And so as I progress on this, I do a subject probe using a TD, transdimensional remote viewing system. So some of the methodology that they came up with to try to connect with the target, connect with the subject, and understand what was on the subject's mind at the time that I was connecting with them.
8074501. Target is 800745001. Target is 800745001. Okay. Let's probe our subject. All right, we're going to probe our subject. Okay. 800745001. Show me the most interesting subject to the site. 800745001. Can you show me now? Yes. Alright, so connect to the subject. Connect. There's male. Prepared. Preparation. Checklist. Emergency. Okay. Conscious state. Alert. Excited. Distracted. Something with significant other. Wife, significant other. Something. It's like something they're doing here, but something also on their mind. It's like this took, whatever this is something that was, it took a while, it took effort. This is like a culmination of time. Culmination. Okay. unconscious state. Connect to the subject, enter the subject, merge with the subject. Unconscious state. So now fortune. Okay, unconscious thoughts, merge with the subject. Based on fear, anticipation. Okay, what is this subject's profession? I feel like an explorer.
Okay, so I thought this was interesting. It's really the first time I ever used this methodology, but I thought the data was actually really good. So if you look, this is some information on the gentlemen who actually were involved in the 1950s in the recovery. And so you have one gentleman who is an archaeologist, Anders Frazen, but one of his good friends was Per Edvin Fjeltling. I don't know how to pronounce that, but Fjeltling was really a recovery specialist. So what they were doing is they were doing treasure dives when they initially came across the remains of the ship. So it's interesting to me because if you look at some of the stuff that comes back, we've got this idea of fortune, somebody who's an explorer, who kind of fits with connotation. I also just found it really amusing because as I was doing this, and that first double brackets that I got over here on the right, if you can see that, it was really like a big, what I saw was like something like a big mask. And so if you look, these guys were wearing in the 1950s, like in addition to scuba gear, they're really wearing these like really old kind of aquatic diving helmets. So it's kind of interesting. I got that. And then the other thing is, thinking about checklists and emergency and this connotation of like this taking a long time. So they really called this the Apollo project for Sweden at the time in the 1950s because of all the engineering that was involved to get the Vasa up out of the water and to recover it. It was pretty impressive. And so I've left out a few things I didn't go through, but in terms of that, getting it out of the water, I also saw like cabling. I got conduits that were on the ground, so that was kind of interesting. I picked that up. And just to close the session out, it always amuses me because I can ask questions like this.
Okay, is there an aspect of the site I haven't seen yet that's important to connect right now? Water, I get something like a man-made structure in the water. Okay, so let's...
So, water, man-made structure on the water. So, this session was fun. There was a lot of things I felt like I wish I'd kind of gotten better data on. So, I go and describe this session later, but with all the submersible things, definitely knew that the target had some connotation to do underwater. But some of the things to work on, one is adjacency, this concept of adjacency. So I'm still finding myself, if somebody has a tasking, they want you to be in a particular location on a particular thing, and I will be everywhere. So if I'm in a city, I'm all over the city. I've had targets I've run where it was about an individual and one particular thing they're doing, and I'll be back in time watching them get off an airplane to go do that thing. So I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to focus on that. If folks have thoughts about that, feel free to leave some in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. Some other things, I was pleased with the TDRS method to try to pull thoughts out of a subject. I thought that worked pretty well. Visual ideograms seem promising. If I keep practicing that, can I get more and more data right there from the very onset to make a strong connection with the target really early in aperture? And then the other things that were interesting to me is definitely all the underwater stuff was good. I got feedback on several things. I just don't know what it is. I didn't go through some of those in the video just so it's not too long, but I got instrumentation. I got these little triangle things with translucency. So if folks do go back and watch the full video and have interest in that, and you know what this is, let me know. I'm curious what some of the return results were. So always learning, the eternal student. Continue to refine my methodology, but hope you all found this interesting, and please give me your thoughts and feedback in the comments. Hope you all have a wonderful day. All the best.